We have identified 123 Main Street. It underwrites. We have our money in order. We have our PSA signed. We're under contract. We're doing our due diligence. We're working with a broker and hopefully an attorney, and we're marching towards a close. Congratulations. You are now on your way to buying your first commercial property. Okay, I'm going to start that over. Let's talk about buying commercial real estate for dummies. First question that comes up. Well, isn't commercial real estate crashing? Well, my friends, it's not. If it was, I would be happy because then we could buy even more and help our clients buy even more. But the reality is commercial real estate is not crashing, right? You may have turned on the news this week and you saw that Eddie Bauer and Francesca's are closing 600 stores. And yes, that's alarming, but you have to understand the way that we are consuming product and interaction and everything in between is facilitated by commercial real estate. So while these Eddie Bauer stores may be closing, right? People are not buying camping supplies in retail stores anymore. These stores are being backfilled by pickleball concepts and new age retail concepts faster than you can say the only four-letter word in commercial real estate, which is vacancy. All of that to say, while the media might be spewing lies about commercial real estate, the market is not crashing. There has certainly been a rebound from 2021, 2022, and we talk about that in other videos. Interest rates low, prices high. However, in this episode, we are also going to be answering your biggest questions when it comes to buying commercial property. What are the listing services? What are the steps? What am I even buying and how do I underwrite it? I'm very, very excited to chat, so let's dig in. I walked into my office last week and I said, Jen, to my office manager, I saw this warehouse priced at $120 a foot. And she said, Aviva, it's buying season. And she's not wrong. We are seeing prices coming down in a serious way, and this might be the best opportunity ever to buy commercial real estate. So I want to get into my 2 top tips for buying commercial real estate as they pertain to getting a deal done. Tip number 1, you have to get your financing in order first, out of respect for your time, out of respect for my time, your partner, your spouses, your parents, your kids, out of respect for their time. You need to understand where the money's coming from. What does that mean? 1, talk to a commercial lender. See what you need in order to get a building with a loan, or you need to talk to your partners. Maybe you're raising OPM. OPM stands for other people's money to buy commercial property, and that's an amazing avenue to do so. However, in order to buy commercial real estate, before you start your showings, before you start offers, you need to know where the money is coming from and how you plan to finance it. Now that you've got your financing order, tip number 2 is to pick a product. What does that mean? I thought we were buying commercial real estate. I thought you would never ask. Commercial real estate is an umbrella term where then there are many, many different product types that you probably never would have even thought that you've consumed or walked into under the umbrella of commercial real estate. This could be retail. This could be medical office. This could be multifamily or hospitality or industrial. In order to buy a commercial asset, you need to know what you're buying and why. For example, here at the Warehouse Hotline, we only transact industrial properties, industrial land, and a little bit of retail. The reason you need to pick your product prior to searching is because you need to know how to underwrite these properties before you start your search. And you do not want to have to rely on a broker, the listing agent's broker, or even your own broker to underwrite that deal for you. Why? The reason you can't just let your broker underwrite the deal is because there are, believe it or not, scenarios where brokers mess up. And when the deal closes and you have now underwritten the property based on the broker's numbers that may be incorrect, at the end of the day, if you have bought the property, you signed on the dotted line, it's your issue. It's no longer the broker's issue. So while brokers are amazing to help facilitate deals, underwriting needs to come from you. Due diligence needs to come from you, right? The buck stops with the buyer because at the end of the day, when the deal is closed, the buyer is the person handling the property. So Very important to do all of your own due diligence. Step number 2 for buying a commercial property is to pick your product and start practicing. Practice underwriting a multi-tenant triple net warehouse. If you don't know what triple net means, I've got a video about it, but also we have amazing resources online, ChatGPT, Google, that literally 5 years ago were not options. So in order to get a deal done, you need to sharpen your pencil, figure out what you're buying and how to underwrite it so that when we start touring and we start looking at these properties, you are able to move fast. Now, you might be saying to yourself, where am I finding these properties where I can learn how to underwrite? And I thought you'd never ask. There's a really interesting commercial real estate ism out there, and it's the listing services. So the question is, what are the commercial real estate listing services? How can I go shopping? For a street buyer, what does that mean? For a commercial buyer, there are many various listing sites for commercial real estate. Some are accessible to the general public, some are not. You, as a buyer, want to be making sure that you're looking at all of your options. So you will start by going on to LoopNet and Crexi, which are options open to the general public where you can start looking at properties, practicing underwriting, getting numbers, etc. Now, you will also be hiring a broker because the broker will have access to CoStar. CoStar is the main database nationally where brokers post their commercial real estate listings. CoStar is really expensive, so the general public doesn't have CoStar subscriptions. However, CoStar owns LoopNet. So you're asking yourself, I thought you just said we don't have access to CoStar, but then we have LoopNet, and what's the difference? Good question. The properties you see on LoopNet are paid for by either the seller or the broker to get more exposure from CoStar. So what that looks like is I go into CoStar and I set up and pay extra for your property to be seen on LoopNet. Not all properties that are brought to the market are put on LoopNet. That's why you need a broker to help you discover the properties that are not paid extra for in order to get that visibility. Now, there's a misconception that properties on LoopNet are bad. That is not true. I've seen amazing deals on LoopNet, and I've seen buyers buy amazing deals on LoopNet. And 2, buyers want off-market deals. Why? I understand, right? It's an element of wanting what you can't have. However, as someone who sells buildings for a living, the way that I see buyers get the best deals are not buying off-market deals, but rather buying deals that have sat on the market for a while. So for whatever reason, the seller is fatigued, and in that case, more likely to give you a better deal on a property as opposed to a seller who doesn't even want to sell in the first place and you have an off-market deal. So a few misconceptions about buying property and the listing services. There are good deals to be had on LoopNet, and just because a deal is off-market doesn't make it better to the average buyer. To recap, the commercial real estate listing sites that you, as the general public, ought to be shopping and consuming on are LoopNet and Crexi. Then, you also want to make sure that your broker is pulling properties from CoStar to see the properties that the general public does not have access to. This is going to give you the most comprehensive understanding of the properties available for sale in the market of your choosing. All right, so we've got our money, we know our product type, but the question arises, who pays the broker? And I thought you'd never ask. When a property goes on the market, generally speaking, the listing agent and the seller agree to a commission that will then be split by the listing agent and the buyer agent at closing. So generally, the seller pays the commission for the listing agent as well as the buyer broker. Now, in an off-market scenario, generally, the buyer will pay the buyer broker the commission. Here's the fun part. Everything's negotiable. That said, if you're looking to sell a commercial property, you should pay your fees because...
What the f***, bro?
I have been in scenarios where I'm the listing agent and the buyer broker goes, I don't want a broker. We'll just take 3% off the price. Well, Mr. Buyer, unfortunately, that's not an option. You see, the seller and the listing agent agree to a price before the property even goes on the market. So say it's a 6% commission, the seller is already going to pay the 6% commission. They have signed on the dotted line and they're already underwriting the 6% out of the final amount. Now, the buyer is going to come in and they are either going to not have representation, in which then the listing agent will get the full 6% commission, or the buyer broker can find a broker, have someone have their fiduciary duty to the buyer, and it doesn't actually change the outcome for the seller. There's that misconception of, well, if I come in without a broker, I'll get a better deal. That's not reality, and I strongly advise against doing so. Remember, if a property is on the market, a fee has already been delineated, and you can ask what the fee is and how that pertains to your deal. All of that to say, we strongly suggest having a broker so you have someone with your fiduciary duty and best interest in mind, specifically if you're buying a property, because it doesn't even cost you anything. Be smart. Don't be cheap. Alrighty. So we've got our financing, we've got our property type, we've got our broker, and we've been practicing underwriting. Now let's go shopping. We're hitting the streets. We're previewing properties. We show up to 123 Main Street, we fall in love with it, and we're ready to buy it. So now what's the next step? We have two options. We're either submitting a LOI, which stands for letter of intent, or a PSA, purchase and sale agreement. 99% of the time, we will draft up an LOI first. An LOI is essentially a 1 or 2 page document that is a high-level representation of the deal points: price, due diligence timeframes, expectations. If the buyer and the seller can agree to the terms on the 2-3 page document of the LOI, then we will move to the purchase and sale agreement, which is the real deal, right? So there's a lot of legalese, but all of it to say, if we can agree on the LOI, then we can agree on the PSA, as opposed to writing up a 25-page purchase and sale agreement and we're fighting over purchase price. We could have saved all that time with just an LOI. So have your broker write up a letter of intent to begin your negotiations with the seller. Alrighty, the LOI has been agreed upon. Now we're on to the purchase and sale agreement. Once the purchase and sale agreement has been agreed upon and signed by both parties, mazel tov, you're under contract. And once you're under contract, that means the buyer has X amount of days to perform their due diligence, get their money in order, and buy the building. And once a seller is under contract, they cannot back out of the deal. I mean, you can, but then you get sued for specific performance. It's a bad idea. We're avoiding lawsuits here.
Goodbye.
In order to buy commercial real estate, preparation prevails over everything. You need to be prepared to get a deal done. There are people who you can hire to get in your court to make sure you get the preparation done, be it attorneys, brokers, people to help with due diligence, etc. However, at the end of the day, you, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, need to understand that preparation is key. If you or someone you know is looking to buy commercial real estate, make sure to save this video, share it with a friend, comment your questions, and subscribe to the channel. My name's Aviva. I'm here in Denver, Colorado with the Warehouse Hotline. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to see what questions you put in the comments.